The town of Eldridge sat cocooned in thick forests and shrouded by perpetual mist. Among the residents, whispers of odd happenings were as close to a town pastime as the annual pumpkin festival. The Eldridge Manor, perched atop a hill and overlooking the dense woods, was invariably at the center of these whispers. When a distant cousin left the old manor to Jane in a will, she came with the intentions of either making it her home or selling it. As a journalist, she thought brief solitude might even spur her writing. What she didn't anticipate was how this house would sink its hooks into her curiosity and shock her to the core. Her first night at the manor started with low humming sounds echoing through the halls. She brushed them off as the house settling, or animals in the attic. She lit an antique lamp, its dull glow revealing old wallpaper that clung desperately to the walls and floorboards that moaned beneath her step. Jane decided to explore the house further, her feet tracing paths that no longer existed, covered by years of dust and neglect. As she wandered, she discovered a peculiar feature: doors that wouldn't open despite no visible locks. They lined the hallway like sentinels, each with an engraving of a crow. As the night deepest draped itself over Eldridge, she heard the soft scuffs of movement somewhere above her. It grew more pronounced, echoing through the silence as if someone dragged their feet across the wooden floors. Startled awake, she ventured up to the attic, finding only inky darkness. By the dim glow of her phone, obscured shapes revealed themselves. An out-of-tune piano, antique furniture covered in sheets, and odd collections of peculiar-looking dolls with eyes that gleamed unsettlingly in the dark. The sounds had ceased, leaving behind a silence heavier than before. Over the next few days, the manor seemed to live and breathe alongside her. Doors she'd left open would be ajar upon her return. Pictures carefully straightened would hang slightly askew. She felt drawn, pulled deeper into Eldridge's enigmatic grasp with every tiny irregularity. The villagers were no help. At the town's only cafe, her inquiries about the house were met with evasive glances and fleeting eye contact. Only one, a weather-worn man named Elias, fixed Jane with a peculiar stare. "It knows you're here," he said, with a raspy voice that seemed tired of secrets. Eldridge doesn't give itself easily. It's claimed many in its weaving. Puzzled but intrigued, Jane ignored his cryptic warning. She resolved to uncover what threads of truth wove through the town's elusive stories. On her fourth night, Jane awoke to the muffled strains of piano music emanating from the parlor. She froze, heart thudding loudly in her chest, the notes gloomy and disjointed. Gathering courage, she crept downstairs, flashlight in one hand and the other clutching her robe tightly. There, in the center of the parlor, the old grand piano played itself, keys moving up and down by unseen fingers. Her skin prickled, but instead of fear, curiosity washed over her. This was no rational trick. The hair-raising melody wrapped itself around her, strangely comforting in its eerie serenade. Drawn to the music, she made out shadows moving beyond the frosted glass of the parlor windows. It must have been just her reflection, she thought. Still, she felt the weight of an audience, as if the house itself observed her closely. That night, she dreamt of a woman in a flowing dress, her image blurred like a watercolor painting left in the rain. The woman stood at one of the locked doors, the engraved crows seeming to twitch with a life of their own, and beckoned Jane forward with urgent eyes. The morning brought rain that blanketed Eldridge in a gray shroud. Jane awoke determined to unravel the mystery, to bring clarity to the hum that buzzed beneath her conscience. She roamed until she came to the library, an expansive room smelling of leather and dust. Here, she found volumes of family history, records dating back to when the manor was first built. One book, bearing the family crest in faded gilt, caught her attention. It told of Evelyn Eldridge, a woman who inherited the manor in the early 1800s. Known for her intense friendship with a group of painters and musicians, Evelyn had abruptly vanished, and rumor claimed discord among her companions, steeped in scandal and envy, had torn them apart. As afternoon turned to evening, Jane discovered a hidden panel behind the bookshelf. It led to a narrow passageway, its walls lined with crude drawings and faded photographs from another era. The passage grew narrow, but it seemed to move like a peristalsis that ushered her along. The air was thick, almost alive, as though it bore the echoes of every inhabitant before her. The passage culminated in a small, candlelit room where Jane found letters scattered across an old desk. They were addressed to Evelyn, filled with declarations and warnings from an infatuated admirer. Among them was a sketch. Evelyn at one of the locked doors, a single crow poised at her feet, key and beak. With steadfast resolve, Jane returned to the hallway and examined the first door again, tracing the engraving with her fingers. The crow's eye glinted knowingly. She heard a click, quiet but distinct, as the door seemed to release its resistance. Inside, she found a secret, small room, its walls etched with the scrawling lines of a once brilliant but tormented occupant. A chilled draft crossed her cheek, and the candles placed around sputtered into life, casting an ominous glow. Shapes began to manifest in the undulating shadows, figures caught mid-step, dramatic gestures etched in spectral dimness. They appeared like reflections from shattered glass, pieces of Evelyn's world stitched unevenly together. Jane felt a rush, a sweeping wind that roared through the room, sweeping around her in an ethereal dance. The figures watched with blank eyes, their presence haunting yet resolute. She understood their silent vigil, an observance of promises broken, dreams frayed and twisted by madness. The air thickened again, alive with emotion, anger, sorrow, longing. But within it, clarity emerged. These hauntings were echoes of betrayal, a harmony between worlds only half understood. Stepping away from the swirling phantoms, Jane's heart calmed as she felt Evelyn's silhouette in the periphery, a serene specter whose intentions resonated with her own. The manor's whisper was a desire for rest, for forgiveness and acknowledgement. Jane sighed, a breath loud enough to break the ethereal balance. In that breath, the haunting chorus quieted, the presence receded, leaving her alone once more. Jane knew then the secret of the ancients anchored within Eldridge Manor's stone walls. The freestanding structures of time had kept them apart, but at last, Evelyn's echo found an ear willing to listen and eyes ready to perceive. Leaving the manor days later with the story of a lifetime, Jane glanced back one last time at the once foreboding residence. Sunbreaks through the clouds seemed like reclamation. The shadows of the manor, less malevolent under light's touch. For Eldridge now lay in the well of past's reawakening. Stories transformed to myths and echoes faded to whispers. Jane was carrying them anew, threads to weave into the fabric of memory, stories longing to be told.